Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to The Right Time, a Wave original presented by Perplexity. My name is Bomani Jones. Thanks for listening wherever you get your podcast. Thanks for watching us on YouTube. Subscribe, like, rate us, review us, give us 5 stars. You only give us 4 stars, I'm inclined to believe you are a hater. We got a lot of NBA Finals talk coming. Also, you guys talking about that day that you decided that you were going to quit football. This is one of them tricky Monday shows where it's like, cool, we got a game the night before. We going to talk about the game. And then the game turns out to be a mollywhopping, which is not necessarily the most conducive thing to conversation. But I need to walk something back. Just a little bit, okay? I feel good right now about my let's slow down on Tyrese Haliburton being a superstar take, right? I may have hedged it slightly by talking about his prowess at the end of games. However, here's how you know that Haliburton ain't actually no superstar. And by the way, he has time to get there. I just want to be clear about that. But the way that we know he ain't no superstar is he hit that shot at the end of game 1, but we acknowledge he ain't really bring it, okay? He had something like 3 points, 3 rebounds, and a couple of assists at the halftime. I said the halftime. I almost said it twice. At halftime of game 2. That is not superstar behavior, okay? Finished it with 17 points. That is not superstar behavior. And we are not treating him like he is a superstar because we would be savaging him in an entirely different way if he were an actual, factual, real-life superstar. Okay. And once again, saying that somebody is not a superstar is not an insult. Saying someone is a superstar is the highest praise. We cannot exist in this binary space where it's only high praise and slander. It can't be that. However, I want to throw something out here about our guy, the hyphen. Does he have a nickname? Ryan, have they gotten around to giving Shai Gilgeous-Alexander a nickname? I know Malik Andrews has been trying to get this Shea Butter thing cracking, which not bad. But does he have like a nickname?
I wouldn't say he is known by a specific nick. I mean, there's
Are you asking Perplexity?
I'm not asking Perplexity. I was looking at, you know how a Basketball Reference has all the silly ones? I was looking there, and he doesn't even have any of the silly ones yet.
Yo, so my question about that with Basketball Reference is, can anybody do it? Because I'd be looking up there and feeling like, yo,
Wikipedia sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, but at least Wikipedia has a bunch of people who moderate and like try to make sure that it's on point.
Yeah, all offense, no defense.
Yeah. Like Basketball Reference just put anybody on, just throw anything out there, right? But Ryan threw this stat out here for me that he has become one of 12 players ever to score a combined 3,000 points between the regular season and the postseason. That is some pretty rarefied air. The more I watch, the more I realize, like specifically, he's a dude that can get his own shot at just about any time. Forget about the free throw stuff. He can still get his own shot. In fact, the ability to get his own shot is what makes it so unseemly that they be out there looking like a goddamn stunt man, right? Like it's wrestling. You know what I'm saying? Like you know what I feel like? I feel like it would be better if them cats was on that foul merchant if it was wrestling, because then everybody's on the same team. Like, Ryan, I don't know how much wrestling you watched when you was a kid, but I'm going to be honest. I look at you, and you look like you watched a lot.
I am not fluent in wrestling, but I'm certainly, I am native.
Okay.
I know the big storylines. I know the big persons. I can make
okay. So this is the thing I remember about wrestling, because I think I told you my siblings are much older than me, right? Which means that they are really big on ruining everything for you as a kid. Not ruin it for you like to break your heart, but just they hit you
just
with a little
introducing
bit of that
cynicism too early.
Yes, there we go. This is exactly it. That is what they're going for, right? So in wrestling, it was kind of a famous Jones family story once that my dad was a little flummoxed by how much my brother was into wrestling. And so one day he took him to the wrestling show, right? And he was like, okay, well, you will certainly see that what the real deal is. You'll understand. And they said they went to the wrestling show and they watched it the whole way. And they were walking back and they weren't saying anything. And my daddy felt satisfied that he had done his job as a proper parent. And my brother looked at him and said, see, Daddy, I told you it was real. And he was just like, damn, right? He was so sure that he had brought it home.
I will say I did see SmackDown here a couple of years ago. Yes. When John Cena came out, they certainly thought it was real. That was a top 5 pop I've ever heard in my life.
They think it's real. They think it's real. So the thing is, the way you get a kid to understand that wrestling is not real is you watch it without volume, because they do so many tricks with noise and sound, and the mat makes so much noise or whatever. They do all that, and that sells the idea. So like when them dudes throw punches, you don't just throw a punch at somebody, you throw a punch and then you step on the ground at the same time, and then Buddy throws his head back, right? Everybody's in on it, okay? So if this was like some maybe Harlem Grove try to shit, and Shai and Jalen Brunson, them cats was doing all this right here, and the other guy was in on it, then it might be a little bit cooler. It might be more dramatic. And instead, you look like a sucker. But anyway, it's offensive because he's so cold that he does not need to behave in such ways, right? Like, I've always been okay with LeBron doing a little bit of flopping, because otherwise they just be knocking the shit out of him all the time. You'd never be able to tell it was a flop. Shaq didn't do nearly enough of it, and that's why he almost had to kill Brad Miller, because they just be out there walloping them cats, right? But with Shai, he can get his own shot at any point. That shot that he missed at the end of game 1 was a great shot. He just happened to miss it, okay? And so as I'm watching this game, and I'm realizing to myself, I'm saying this dude ain't a superstar because I say it don't feel to me like he's a superstar. And the only reason I think, the more that I think about it, that it doesn't feel to me that he's a superstar is that I have not seen him do it in the times and places that we consider superstars to be superstars, right? Like, when is the moment that you need a dude to step up? A game like game 2 is one that, if you choose to, becomes an example of a dude stepping up like a superstar. The problem is the big underdog won game 1 on the road. And so it is our reasonable expectation that you're going to get a big game from the favorite, and then they're going to walk. And that is exactly what happened here, right? But what is clear is that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander can be the best player on a championship team. It is clearer to me that he could be that guy than it is with Haliburton. Like, it's actually kind of funny in that, can he be or is he a superstar conversation? We got to arguing about it with Haliburton. I don't even think that we put it before the committee with Shai. Like, did we do that? Is it just because he won the MVP that it became a matter that we did not need to discuss, and they could do what they call that? Auto sign? Is that what it called? You know what I'm saying? Where you just do a bunch of them at one time. We don't even need to talk about it with Shai. Me and Trey, but I thought about it. Like, when me and Trayvon were talking about it on Wednesday of last week, it felt like it was a bit in the air. And then I'm like, yo, this is actually low-key crazy talk to put it in that place. The reason that we have not quite put him in superstar place is because they are kicking everybody's asses. Like, that is the irony of this discussion. They are 18-2 this season, the Thunder are, when they are coming off of a loss. Of those 18, 12 of them are by double digits. We have watched this team smack people up and down in the course of this postseason, right? Look, they closed out Minnesota with a 30-point win, right? They started that series. Let me do my math here. That one was 26. They put it on about 15 a game after that. They closed out the Nuggets by beating them by 30-something points. They had another game where they beat the Nuggets by 30-something points. Look, dog, they've been doing this. They've been doing that. You can't be the best player on a team like that and not have some legitimate superstar bona fides, no matter how it quote unquote feels to somebody like me. It cannot be that, especially for me, at least, as the more and more I watch this, the Thunder got a hand of low spades. Like, I think the day will come where Chet Holmgren will be not just an all-star. I think he is going to end up in the Hall of Fame. Like, I've been a Chet guy, big guy, since he was in college. I think he's going to wind up being that guy. But Jalen Williams, 5 for 14. That's not really bringing the heat. Now, is it? 5 for 14.
Yeah, I mean, again, we're talking first finals, tertiary piece. But if you're looking at a guy who's going to be SGA's running mate for the next 5 to 10 years, as people project the Thunder's success going forward, he's going to have to be better if they're going to put that sort of run together.
Look, they won 60-something games with one guy that you can count on, and they made it to the finals, and they were smoking people with one guy that you can count on. Like, in my understanding of basketball and the way it's always been, that tells me that I need to give a little bit more credit to that one guy, especially considering while he's doing that, the dude that we arguing about whether or not he's a superstar, who I have lots of good things to say about, he went out there and put out another, you could have been worse, but you definitely could have been better sort of game. Now, what I don't have a great handle on right now is exactly how this series is going to go. And the reason I say that is Oklahoma City has smoked Indiana basically. I think they've been up for basically the entirety of this series, except for like 0.3 of a second, because the Pacers only had the lead for the last 0.3 of a second in game one. And then we see how this played out in game two. However, that is also the same way, by and large, it felt with the Pacers in that Knicks series. Like, the issue with the Pacers, and I really don't like this about them, just so you know this, they'll never give up. And, I mean, if I rooted for the Pacers, I would like the fact that they would never give up. But sometimes I like a good blowout so I can go do something else. I was really busy this week. I was tired as hell. You know what I'm saying? When the Thunder's up by like 20 points in the first half, I'm feeling like, okay, cool, maybe we can do something else. If you can't do that, because it was the Pacers. In fact, the Pacers had me at a point in that first half where the Thunder was up by 20. The Pacers did a couple shots. I sent a text to my buddy Vinny, and I sent a text to my brother Trayvon in another group chat, and I was like, Pacers about to have this as a 10-point game. They ain't have it at no goddamn 10-point game. That is not what happened at all. But I had to assume that was going to happen because that's what they be doing. So at no point are you ever able to feel like they're not going to be able to get it, right? It's not that. But I do think after 2 games, we got a pretty good feeling, at least, of who the better team is. Now, who's going to win it is his own discussion. But I feel like we got a decent feeling about who the better team is. Okay? And now we're going to see how this goes in game 3, right? We're going to see how this plays out. I think it's safe to say if Oklahoma City wins game 3, this is over. It may not be over in 5 or anything like that, but they're going to win this. If Indiana gets game 3, then we're going to learn a lot about the constitution of the Thunder, because it's still Alex Caruso and a bunch of very, very, very young dudes. Not that the Pacers are out here looking like the 2006 Miami Heat, but it's still a squad with like a bunch of young guys. And we're going to have to see how they hold it together. We're going to see how it is that they come together and how they bring it together. And I think, obviously, they still have a very good chance to pull that off. They obviously still have a very good chance to make it happen. But it's still a lot that we're going to have to see, right? Like, I asked this question, and I do think who your number 2 option matters. Who would you rather have as your number 2 player? Siakam or Chet or Jalen Williams? I'd much rather have Siakam. That being said, I was really paying attention to it in game 1. And we've talked a lot about the Thunder and they playing that 48 minutes of hell, right? The Thunder got me thinking about that scene in The Wire in season 1 when Avon is in there with his uncle and his uncle's all messed up or whatever. And Avon's talking about how, if you're going to be in the game, you always got to be on point. You can't be slow. You can't be late. But he's like, how are you never going to be a little bit slow? How are you never going to be a little bit late? Like, how can you be on point at all times? That is what it's got to feel like playing against the Thunder, because I have never seen a team that tries to rip every time the ball is available. I have never seen a team with a clearer ethos of rips. They just rip, right? Ripping is not the same as hacking. They're going for the ball every time. You can never forget about bringing the ball below your waist. It feels like you can't bring the ball below the letters. Yes, I know the letters is a baseball term, but they got letters on basketball jerseys too. Anytime that ball comes down, them cats are trying to take it from you. That has got to be so exhausting, the level of focus that you have to truly never, ever be a little bit slow or a little bit late.
And it's all of them. It's Dort, it's Wallace, it's Caruso. I mean, when SGA is your worst defender by a wide margin, it is
your 6'6" point guard with crazy long arms, right? That's the least of your options. No. Like the Pacers, I would not say the Pacers have to play perfectly to win this series, but they might want to give that a try. It's their best chance. All right, man. A lot of discussion around the finals about something that to a lot of people does not seem like a big deal, and that is not having the decal of the trophy, the Larry O'Brien trophy, on the court for the NBA Finals. That is a thing that had been done for many years, and they have not. Now, the NBA has said that the reason that they no longer have the decals on the floor, because they don't even have like the decals for the finals either, but the reason that they don't have the decals on the floor is because the players were slipping on them. That is a good reason to not put those decals on the floor. That is not a good reason to stop putting decals on the floor. Stop putting decals on the floor that the players trip and fall on. I feel like you can send it back to the lab and there is somebody who went to graduate school and got a PhD to become an engineer because he thought that he was going to solve the world's great problems. And then he found out that the real money was in making decals for the NBA, and you need to go tell him to make it non-slip. And I want to say something right fast about those engineers, and this is something to think about that nobody ever thinks about, right? Everybody that's in engineering school or whatever that wants to be a big-time engineer, and I imagine a lot of them just want to get that paper, right? But I also imagine that they look at the world, and when they decided they was going to get into this and they started doing more and more, their thoughts were that they was really going to like shake things up. They was going to be out here. They had grand dreams, man, of everything it is that they wanted to do. And there's some dude, and I'm being very particular about this right now, being a dude. There's some dude out there that after all those dreams and everything else, every day he wakes up and he says to himself, self, there has got to be a way that we can make that maxi pad even more absorbent. That's his life. Now, look, I imagine that there is a woman who has that job who was like, girls, I'm going to make these maxi pads more absorbent. And they are like, thank you. But this dude, that is not why he signed up to do this. I know that the decal man did not want his life's work to be making the decal the least slippery as it could be. But somebody need to get on the motherfucking job.
It's just like every live musician you ever see, you know, that was not their dream. They were all in their mind separate rock stars.
Hold on. Every radio executive who has a first name and a last name that's also a first name, because the original plan was to be a host. Correct. And then they realized they would be better off bossing hosts around, right? It's the same exact situation. Anyway, the decals being slippery was not a good enough reason to stop putting them on the floor. Figuring out how to make them non-slippery was the play. And I have seen people online raise the very fair question, why is there so much discussion about putting the trophy decal on the floor? And I would argue that it's not so much specifically about the trophy decal itself. It is about the fact that the way that the finals have been presented has made the games just feel like games, as opposed to something that is a really, really, really big deal. And I think something that is lost or that people may not understand about doing these sorts of things, if the people presenting do not make what they're doing seem like a big deal, then the people watching will not believe that it is a big deal. Presentation matters a lot. Think about how much presentation matters when serving food. And that is something that serves a functional purpose, right? What do they call it? Plating. That's what they do, and getting your colors right and everything else. You go to a fancy restaurant, they don't serve you the shit on styrofoam and the plates with the cutouts on them. They don't do that, okay? They do that maybe at a barbecue, but you know a barbecue is a big deal because you can smell it in the air. You know what I'm saying? you got to dress the plates up so that people understand what kind of meal this is. And what the league has not really done is dress the plates up. I saw this bounce around a few weeks ago, but somebody had run a clip of, I want to say it's maybe before game 6 of the 1998 finals, but it was one of those 1990s finals. And it's Bob Costas, and he's talking about the Bulls, and I guess it was the Bulls and the Jazz. So it was either 97 or 98. And the language that he was using implied or conveyed a real significance and depth and importance to the moment that everybody was in. Now, of course, you had Jordan, and it was Jordan to the end of his career if it was 98. So that becomes a little easier for you to spell out. But there was something to be said about what it means to hear Bob Costas' voice, and then to hear Bob Costas in one of his, once again, incredibly written pieces. And I've worked for 2 seasons with Bob on his show on HBO, man. The man don't miss, right? But it felt like a big deal. And then they go into it and they turn the lights off. It's and it's like, okay. And you feel it. Like to this day, if you go somewhere and they play Sirius, Sirius, you go feel it, right? And you're going to feel it because it is part of the idea that those Bulls games were big deals. And they cut the lights because, see, people don't know this. The Bulls weren't the first to cut the lights for the intros. I want to say the Sixers were the first to do it, but that was a novel thing. It felt like something when that happened. You got to dress these games up like they matter. And so the NFL still gets this. And the NFL has some advantages. Notably, they play the games outside. So you can fly fighter jets and all this stuff over there. But the NFL always manages to make its games feel like a big deal. Now, they, again, also have an advantage of how few games there are. So there are big deals then by definition. But with basketball, you're going to have to do more to make it feel like a big game, right? During the LeBron era, everything felt like a big game because that man was fighting for his life for like 4 straight years. From game 6 of the 2010 Eastern Conference semifinals against Boston, all the way through really game 7, 2013, everything was about the legacy of LeBron James. Think about how many most important games of his career that LeBron had through that stretch. There were so many of them, and we knew that going into every game. Every game felt like not so much the end of the world, but the impact of it felt so strong because the stakes were so clear. But the stakes weren't simply clear because they were self-evident. They were clear because we told you, we being the people in this business, we told you over and over and over and over again what were the stakes. We were watching the LeBron James dynasty saga. You've heard me use that term before about teams, but specifically LeBron, we were following that story. And then after 2016, we just didn't have as much story to follow, right? Once he got to the ultimate mountaintop, winning the championship with the Cavs. We then, to the next 2 years, had Kevin Durant Warriors championships, which just didn't feel the same because we knew they were going to win, right? Even LeBron 2020 in the bubble, it just didn't feel the same. People have asked the question about whether or not the NBA's problem is that it's selling players over teams. And no. That is not the problem. The problem is that they haven't found another player to sell, right? If the players were a little bit more interesting or the stories were a little bit deeper, then selling players is fine. The NFL does not sell teams over players. The NFL sells the NFL over anything else. And you can do that with the nature of that sport. What everybody in basketball needs to understand is it's not football. Therefore, you cannot sell it like it's football. You can't do it. One of my chief criticisms of ESPN's coverage of the NBA is that they treat the NBA like the NFL. You can't cover it the same way. People don't want the breakdowns of strategic minutia in basketball the way that they want them in football, right? Basketball is a little more loosey-goosey. It's a little bit more free. That's how people more likely want to talk about it. You can't do quick bullet point discussions in the way that ESPN does. But what's so interesting about that to me is the part that you can treat like football is making the games feel like big deals. And that's the part that they don't do. That's the part that the league does not do. So when you come out here and you don't have any signage on the court to indicate that it's the NBA Finals, it already looks like a goddamn AAU tournament with the coaches wearing quarter zips and anybody wearing any old jersey that was clean. You can't tell who the home team was just by looking on the floor. You got to make this feel like something. And the part that people mess up on, and I think that this is somewhat part and parcel with the issue that we're discussing here. You'll hear people make the point when talking about sports that it's entertainment, and that is not true. Sports is entertaining, but it is far more significant to people than entertainment. Okay. Yeah, there's an occasional movie franchise that gets people lining up at night and they talk about it for days or whatever it is, or But movies don't mean to people with sports.
Doesn't stick with people.
It doesn't stick. It doesn't mean the same thing to people. It doesn't pass down through families in that way. It doesn't transcend generations in that way. Sports are entertaining, not entertainment. Because the problem is, if you treat sports like entertainment, then sports get treated like the rest of entertainment gets treated right now, which is something that is not intended to be excellent, something that is not intended to be momentous, something that is not intended to be monumental, but simply something intended to occupy your time and attention. Just something for you to watch, not something for you to feel, not something to captivate you, just something to occupy you. That is how entertainment is treated right now. You don't want sports to be that. You don't want to be so cynical to strip away all the larger things and act like it doesn't matter, right? It does. I've been a person that's done a lot of work that's been around, we treat sports like they're too big a deal. No, we treated sports unhealthily is what I realized. And I think that we conflated that unhealthiness with acting like it's a big deal. And I think there's room to do two things at once, right? But play up the pageantry, play up the stuff around it. An audience needs it. Very similar to how if you are doing comedy, overwhelmingly, not entirely, but overwhelmingly, audiences are very much so helped by laugh tracks. Sometimes people need to know when to laugh.
When I think about presentation, and something you've talked about a lot, and this isn't just a football phenomenon. You think of two big events that are almost exclusively presentation. One is the Kentucky Derby.
Yes.
It's just a big horse. That is 6 hours of presentation for a 3-minute race.
Yes.
And then the other one, obviously, is the Masters.
Yes.
And that is it. And that is something that feels like a big deal, specifically because they tell you their whole brand is this is the biggest deal.
Yes, you got to do it. What the NBA tried to do then was just beam in some trophies on the floor, which, by the way, should have been your first idea once you decided. You beam in everything else for paper, right? You should have might as well. And see, that is what it makes me think. It makes me think that they needed to get that real estate back so they could sell it. But the YouTube TV logos, they be on there. You know what I'm saying?
They're on there and they're working.
That's right. They had the room to do all of this stuff. It doesn't matter if you already got the money. Give the people something they can feel. And when you do that, that's when it becomes contagious. People who don't even pay attention or don't care, you know what it feels like when it's a big deal. And when something is a big deal, case in point, Ryan, the Kentucky Derby, I don't give a damn about no horses. But it feels like a big deal. People know it's a big deal, so they're going to check it out.
You're learning who these people are as the show's going, right? Like
yes.
Everything is, being brought to you. You're learning as you're going. And I think the NBA and ESPN can do a better job of really telling the story from the start.
This is why it seems small. But the trophy on the floor and having the finals logo and those things, there is something to it. This is not beating the NBA. They're always doing something wrong or people don't even like the game and Nah. I'm just telling you, if you want it to feel like something, you got to act like it's something. And if you don't act like it's something, why the hell would anybody else? This show is brought to you by Perplexity. Perplexity is an AI-powered answer engine that searches the internet in real time to give you fast, high-quality answers with sources. Unlike legacy search engines that respond with a list of links, Perplexity skips straight to the answers you need, explained in easy-to-understand, everyday language with sources and citations.
That's right, Bo. We use Perplexity all the time to look things up, confirm things. For example, last week we used it to look up Rick Carlisle's playoff record, and since 2011, not great.
Discover fast and reliable search with Perplexity today. Download the app or ask Perplexity anything at perplexity.ai. The NBA Finals are finally here, and this is your last shot to win some real cash before the season ends. The simplest way to get in on the action? Downloading the Pick 6 app from DraftKings. It's crazy simple. Just pick more or less on the stats or two or more of your favorite players, and boom, you're in the mix for big cash prizes. Nail your picks and you're heating up. Pick 6 brings upside with payouts up to 500 times. You ready to make your finals run? New DraftKings Pick 6 customers can toss in just $5 on your first entry, and you'll get $50 in bonus picks instantly. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app right now and use code BOMANI. That's code BOMANI. New customers play $5, get $50 in bonus picks instantly. Ride the upside, only on DraftKings Pick 6. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 plus, age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited, 1 per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick 6 bonus picks that expire in 14 days. Limited time offer. Terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
Making money move should be easy, and that's why there's Cash App. It's fast, safe, and honestly just way more personalized than other apps out there. No extra hoops to jump through, no extra stress. All of the tools are right there to help you cash in. Plus, sending money with Cash App actually feels safe. They look out for you. If something seems sketchy or they see you might be sending money to a potential scammer, they'll warn you and make you think twice before you hit send. It's like having a personal bodyguard for your cash. You can even spice up your payments with custom text, stamps, and backgrounds. Because why should paying your friend for brunch be so boring? If for whatever insane reason you don't already have Cash App, just download it from your phone's app store. Sign up, enter our code BOMANI in your profile, and send $5 to a friend, and you'll get $10 just for getting started. For a limited time only, new Cash App users can use our exclusive code to earn some additional cash. For real, there's no catch. Just download Cash App and sign up. Use our exclusive referral code BOMANI in your profile and send $5 to a friend within 14 days, and you'll get $10 dropped right back into your account. Terms apply. That's money. That's Cash App. Let me tell you about ZBiotics Pre-Alcohol Probiotic. ZBiotics Pre-Alcohol Probiotic drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle tough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's a buildup of this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for rough days after drinking. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember to make pre-alcohol your first drink of the night, drink responsibly, and you'll feel your best tomorrow. Summer is here, which means more opportunities to celebrate the warm weather. Before that backyard barbecue brew, glass of Pinot watching the sunset at the beach, or cocktail by the campfire, don't forget your ZBiotics Pre-Alcohol. Drink one before drinking and wake up feeling great and ready to take on the next day and all that summer has to offer. Go to zbiotics.com/Bomani to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you see Bomani at checkout. ZBiotics is back with a 100% money-back guarantee, so if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund you your money, no questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/Bomani and use the code Bomani at checkout for 15% off.
We know you can't be on top of all the news and information of the day. No need for the social media feeds. We got you. Now, if you haven't heard.
All right, Bo, this first story is about drugs.
My name is Matthew Sedacca, and I'm a writer for Curbed, the real estate vertical at New York Magazine. I recently wrote a blog looking at why so many ketamine clinics had opened up in Midtown Manhattan. This real estate microtrend had offhandedly been mentioned in an article in Cranes, which was reporting on the proliferation of ketamine clinics across New York City. Many of these clinics have opened up as interest has grown in recent years for using this drug, which has psychedelic properties, for treating depression and other mental health issues. Well over a dozen clinics have opened up across the city, most of which are located in Manhattan and in a handful of wealthier neighborhoods in Brooklyn, like Williamsburg and Brooklyn Heights. Curiously, though, a good chunk, around a half dozen, have opened up along Madison Avenue at side streets in Midtown East and Murray Hill. Some of these clinics, like Neshama, which offers more of a luxury spa vibe with zero-gravity chairs people can sit in while receiving their ketamine infusions, are located high up in Art Deco office buildings. Another clinic was situated in an office suite just a few floors above an Irish pub. A commercial real estate broker told me that these clinics are choosing Midtown of all places because they want to be close to their clientele. But many also were located in buildings with other medical practices, which the broker said gives these clinics a certain credibility and possibly referrals too. The drug, however, does have the potential for people to develop an addictive habit, and the clinics said they are screening patients for health issues and monitoring treatment schedules, which all makes sense since the New York Times reported this week that Elon Musk allegedly used the drug so much that he developed bladder issues, although he denied having abused ketamine or having issues going to the bathroom.
First of all, Ryan, I don't know if you are a Beatles guy, but this is very Dr. Robert. This is exactly the Dr. Robert situation from top to bottom. I don't know nothing about that ketamine life myself personally. Like I don't know too much of this, but I will say this is in line with what we talked about before. The war on drugs is over.
Yeah, I mean, I think the interesting thing about it is, like things we've talked about it on this show is like the monetization of everything, right? Like just like finding another way to capitalize on these rich people and find a business there. And I think another thing that's interesting to me is that he mentioned at the end of that is the Elon of it all.
Yes.
And he is one of the few people, I mean, probably the last person besides Steve Jobs who like has that hero worship phenomenon. So I think that influence cannot be understated.
Yeah, I think the other part is, quite honestly, as the pharmaceutical companies have gotten so big, everybody's taking something for something, right? And so nobody's going to be able to get really too mad about any of it because everybody's taking something for something. And then it just rises up to these different places. Because I've heard people talk about ketamine. I've heard some people talk about it being an incredible situation. I also just get the feeling, though, that ketamine, in a lot of ways, sounds a lot like cocaine in the sense that the worst thing about cocaine, they tell me, is the people that you meet when you are doing cocaine. Like most of the people I hear talking about ketamine, hey, man, they with one exception, I'm like, oh, I can't really fuck with you, homie.
Yeah, it doesn't exactly seem like the best hang for sure. All right, this next story is about relationships.
Hi, I'm Amanda Hoover, and I'm a senior correspondent with Business Insider. I wrote a story about how expensive and extravagant bachelorette parties have become, and the people who are seizing the opportunity. They're making money by selling custom decor on Etsy, offering services like stocking fridges with alcohol, or working as cabana boys at poolside parties and private chefs at decked-out Airbnbs. These are people who are either cashing in on the trend as a side hustle or have been able to quit their jobs and do this work full-time. I spoke to a woman who supports her family by selling balloons that say bride, colorful backdrops, and the classic phallic decor. Bachelor parties have gotten a lot of shade in recent years as they've become days-long vacations with expensive activities and customized decorations. The average attendee spends about $1,300 to attend one now. But for all the complaining that takes place on social media about bridezillas and big bachelorette party asks, the parties really do serve as a way to bring women together and make the bride feel appreciated and loved by the women who are closest to her in her life.
Where are you people getting this money? You say $1,300 to go to a bachelorette party? I feel like she left the most important part unsaid, and that is Instagram. Elaborate backdrops. Why do you need an elaborate backdrop? To put it on Instagram, right? This is how I feel about proms, weddings in general, all of these things. Instagram has totally messed the game up. And I'm asking again, where are people getting this money? I remember many, many years ago, roughly 20, not exactly, I was engaged to somebody and we was talking about doing a wedding. And I remember the statistic at the time was that the average wedding cost $10,000. which for me at that point in my life, coming up with $10,000 was not going to be an easy thing. I can only imagine what the average wedding costs now, because they're all, and the gram is the thing that's throwing it up, because now you got to show this to people. It's got to present well. It's got to be seen well. Like the impact of Instagram on so many things. Like I was reading this book that I was talking about this with restaurants, for example. Like I forget the name of the restaurant. Ryan, you'll know what I'm talking about when I describe it. But it's one of these restaurants in New York that's got like the super crazy desserts. Like it'll be like a giant shake or whatever with like a bunch of Oreos on the top of it or whatever, just huge. And it was the social media team that put it on the menu because it would play well on Instagram. And so when I read something or hear something like what she's talking about, yeah, it could be all of that for the bride to feel loved. Man, that's for the bride to floss. That is for the bride not to feel loved, but to show everybody else how loved she feels and everything else. That is all this comes down to, but it has made all of these rites and rituals into being something so crazy expensive that I really don't know what people do if they just don't have it like that.
Yeah, the thing that's interesting to me is you're spending all of this money to talk about the Instagram of it all, to people to take bad photos and to put on Instagram. Like that's the thing that's like, you're spending thousands of $1,000 so someone can document this, like with a crooked photo that people are never going to look at again.
Meanwhile, on the bachelor party side, fool, you better not post no pictures of what we're doing this weekend. like it might as well be NDAs. I mean, granted, not to say that these ladies is posting every picture, you know what I'm saying? But still, like, nah. I wish I would be having a bachelor party and somebody walk in the room with some balloons.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that divides us more than it brings us together, if you will.
Yes.
All right. Played. So our last one is from Science. The article is titled, "He won the Nobel Prize, but he thinks we have the universe all wrong." This is about Nobel laureate Adam Rees and the mystery called Hubble tension. So Hubble, referring to the big space telescope, that's how we figure out where everything is in the sky, right? It's so far away, it's so many light years, however. But now there is a big disagreement on the unit of measure. So that is really warping things for scientists over how big the universe is, how far is it expanding, and what the reasons are for that expansion.
That is fascinating, right? The idea, well, it's fascinating and not fascinating at the same time, right? On one level, it is fascinating that somebody has really got in this. And I love these ideas of somebody pops up and was like, actually, we've got this whole thing wrong, right? This isn't as momentous as the world is round, not flat, but it's of a similar thing, right? At the same time, if you say so.
I think I'm kind of with you on that. I think of the bravery it takes to do that in a meeting, and obviously in academia that's a little different because that's kind of the whole bag is like,
oh no. it still takes a lot. Yes. Right? For you to be the person that stood up and said the world is round, not flat.
Yeah, a mile is not a mile. Like that's what we're talking about with these units of measurement.
Right. And none of those people in there have brought themselves to, some of them may have seen the error, but honestly been afraid. Like, nah, there's no other way.
This is not how I'm going to spend my Wednesday.
Like, yeah. They're like, nah, it can't be that. No chance. Nah, bruh. Like, this is big. Like, for the people who do this, I can only imagine their group chats set on fire when they're like, actually, we've got the universe completely wrong. I'll be honest, because when I pick these stories, I pick them from headlines because I like to be as surprised as everybody else. I thought that they were going to imply that we had the universe a little bit wronger. Did they said we had it, right? Like I did think it was going to be a little bit more momentous. However, finding out that the universe is a different size while the universe is still gargantuan, I do also find it to be interesting.
All right, voicemails, oldie but a goodie. Tell us about the time you quit football. We got some good ones. Here's the first.
Hey, Bo, this DP out of Toledo calling about that time you quit playing football. just for a little background, I was one of the best athletes in my city, and my friends and classmates had begged me to go out and play football, be the quarterback. I didn't want to do it, finally decided to do it. My 7th grade year, I went out and at my 3rd practice, running back on the team broke his ankle. His leg was straight up, but his foot was laying on the ground. They called the rescue squad. They came over, straightened his foot up, put it in that bag and blew that air in it. And as he laid on the ground hollering the whole time, I was sitting there watching, and I was like, yeah, I don't think I'm going to do this. I rode my bike home from practice, got in the house, looked at my mom and says, Mom, I'm sorry I wasted your $20, but I quit football today. And I took up the 2 Bs, baseball and bowling. All right, Bo, I love the show. Great talking to you guys, and have a good one.
So when I was in 7th grade, I think it was 7th grade, we were playing flag football in PE, and somebody caught one of those where they laying on their back and both their feet was turned the same way. I've never heard screaming like that before. Never. Any of it. Never. And he just laid there, and they didn't have nothing they could do. And we was just all over on the side like, damn. And I remember his dad finally pulled up later, they said, and his dad was like, cool, well, I'll just put him in the truck. And they were like, no, this is not a put him in the truck situation.
I love how there's very few things that are more universal about football than I guarantee that what the coach's responses when that happened was 3 words. Move the drill.
Yes. Yeah, move over there. Dominique talks about that. He saw that they airlifted somebody and they were just like, yep, move over there. That was it.
Hey, Bo. Hey, Ryan. This is Doug from just outside of Omaha. Question was when you decided you were done playing football. So my senior year of high school, I was playing offensive line. I was the left tackle. And I'm a large guy. I'm 6'3". At the time, I was about 245, 250. So, not D1 offensive line prospects or anything, but still a pretty big guy. Last game of the season, we were playing Millard West High School there in Omaha. And Millard West at the time had a guy who was just an all-world nose guard. He ended up going and playing at Kansas State. Later that year, he would set the state record for shot put, just all-world athlete, all-world defensive lineman. And we knew we had to key on that guy if we wanted to get anything done. So we put in a special play where, depending on which direction we'd run, one of the tackles we would pull, and our job was just to zero in on that guy and block him, hopefully with all the momentum that you can get while you're pulling. So first offensive possession of the game, we get the ball, play comes in, all right. And it's for me, and the call is for me to pull and hit this guy. So I'm like, okay, I'm getting ready. Waiting for the snap count. I'm going to hit this guy with a full head of steam. Ball snapped. I turn. I run as fast and as hard as I can. I find him. I bounce off. And again, I'm 6'3", about 250 pounds. And I bounce off him in a way that I don't think I've ever bounced off a person or ever have or ever will. It hurt. And I remember lying on the ground on my back. And he was, he probably I think he blew up the play, tackled the running back in the backfield. And I remember just staring up at the night sky, just thinking, God, why am I doing this? Because I had thoughts like maybe I go to a small school and, switch positions or something. But I'm just like, no, this is good. I've lettered. I've done the high school football thing. I don't need to play any more football. I don't need to be subjected to guys like this ever again. So I played hard the rest of the game. And after that, I hung up my helmet and cleats and didn't play any real organized football ever again. Love the show. Take care, guys.
Hey, man, this is the thing about football. If you're going to play, you may as well play hard. Not playing hard isn't going to make anything better.
No, I think that's one of the first things they teach you is if you don't go full speed, it's going to be way worse.
Head on a swivel.
All right, here's our last one.
Hey, Bo, I want to tell you about how I quit football. I played college, small school, non-scholarship. Was already thinking about quitting, but kept it up for like one last year. Was at practice, going through it, and took a hit, kind of got hit below the belt. It happens. You don't think much of it. You just shake it off, keep going. Finished practice, went through the night, went to bed, woke up the next morning and realized that something was up. I looked down and one of my boys had swollen up to about 3 to 4 times its normal size. So I'm panicking. I'm in pain. I go to the athletic director and they have him check out what's going on. And they're just like, we can't help you. We don't know what to do at this point. And I'm thinking to myself, what do I do? I go to the hospital and they're telling me, we need to do an ultrasound. And I'm just like, all right, let's do it. Get on the ultrasound table, and I'm in so much pain. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, why am I doing this? There's no reason to keep playing. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going pro. I'm done with this. So ended up having some sort of blockage and infection, and it was just unnecessary at that point. So recovered after a week, but then I hung him up after that. I was done. There's no reason. So I'm done. Thanks, Bo. Love the show.
Hey, Ryan, what's up with them DraftKings picks, brother? Let's start talking about DraftKings.
All right, we're looking ahead to Game 3 Wednesday night. I like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander to keep scoring more than 34.5 points. On the other side, I like Pascal Siakam more than 18.5. That's Wednesday night Game 3. The playoffs the NBA Finals are finally here, so this is your last shot to win some real cash before the season ends. So don't miss your last shot to win some cash this NBA season. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app right now and use code BOMANI. That's code BOMANI. New customers play $5, get $50 in bonus picks instantly. Ride the upside only on DraftKings Pick 6. The crown is yours.
Whew. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks so much for joining us here on The Right Time. We do this here 3 times a week. Ryan Brumley handles everything behind the scenes. Thank you, sir. Also, thanks to our If You Haven't Heard contributors. Thanks to Matthew Sedacca of Curb. Check out his story on the Midtown Ketamine corridor at curb.com. Thanks to Amanda Hoover of Business Insider. Check out her story on the Bachelorette Industrial Complex at businessinsider.com. Remember, follow The Right Time. Subscribe, like, rate us, review us, give us 5 stars. You only give us 4 stars. I'm inclined to believe you are a hater. And we'll talk to you guys in a couple of days. Whew. Take it easy.